Hello everyone, happy Wednesday. Tomorrow starts the first free practice of the 2024 F1 season, and I just wanted to give you my predictions for the drivers and constructors championships this year. And I'm going to be honest, some of you are going to call me insane. Some of you are going to call me mad. Some of you are going to call me mental. A few of you might agree with me, but most of you, I think, are going to think I'm a little crazy for these predictions. But I genuinely, this is not a meme, I genuinely think these are some solid predictions. So let's get right into it. All right, so let's first start with the Drivers' Championship, and we're going to go P20 to P1. I will explain some of these as we kind of go through it and my thoughts and reasons. Honestly, some of them aren't going to be that crazy to understand. I think some of them are going to be pretty self-explanatory. So let's start with P20, Kevin Magnussen. Yeah. And then I'm just going to quick follow that up with P19, Nico Hülkenberg. I'll be honest, guys. Will Buxton does say some crazy things, but I think last year he summed up Haas pretty well with the whole bringing a spoon to a gunfight instead of a knife situation. I really don't see Haas putting a ton more into this year's car, bringing a ton of speed out of it. I genuinely think both are going to be dead last. Maybe one of them could jump in Alfa Romeo, maybe, but it's gonna be a challenge. All right, for P18, I have Valtteri Bottas. I think the Alfa Romeo was okay at points last year, but it was just not very consistent. Just couldn't seem to really fight for points, and I think that was a struggle. So P18 is going to be Valtteri, and then following up closely behind is P17, which will be Zhou Guanyu. And it's unfortunate. You'd love to see them do better, and who knows? Maybe they'll prove me wrong. But I feel like after last season and seeing the end of the season, the progress that some teams were making, I don't see Alpha being able to keep up with that kind of progress throughout this year. So that's where I place them. All right, P16. Some people might have a problem with this, but I think this is genuinely pretty solid prediction. Logan Sargent. I think Logan's going to get more points than he did last year, which was 1. So definitely going to get more points. And I genuinely think that Williams is becoming a better car. And as long as they've stayed a little ahead of Alpha and the Haas's and doing some good work there, I think Logan has gained some of his confidence back and could put in some good, solid, consistent results this year to bring home some good points for the team. He's not going to be near Alex. You'll see Alex is higher up in these standings, but I think he'll bring in some decent good points to put Williams much higher up this year. All right, in P15, I have Esteban Ocon. People are going to call me crazy for this after the Alpine last year, but from some of the things we heard from testing, it doesn't sound like the Alpine is very good. Who knows? Maybe they'll surprise us in the season. Maybe they'll surprise us, but I really have a feeling that the drivers and constructors, there's going to be some switching. There's going to be some flip-flopping this year from what there was last year, and I think there's going to be some surprises, and I just wouldn't be shocked if Alpine was one of those surprises in a bad way. All right, P14 is Yuki Tsunoda in the Visa Cash App Racing Bull, or RB, because they don't want us to say Racing Bull, apparently. I think, as always, Yuki does decent work putting in good points. He's not the most consistent driver. I think that car is going to be faster than it was last year, which will be really great, but I don't think Yuki will be consistent enough with that car if it is decent to put himself any higher than P14. So that's where I put him. Up next is P13. Like I said, the Alpine is not going to be that great of a car this year. I think it's going to potentially be worse, and that's why I put Pierre Gasly at P13. I think he's going to outperform his teammate for sure, but overall, I think I have a feeling the Alpine might lack some pace this year, and so that's what I did. Call me crazy, some of you will, but that's what I'm thinking. All right, in P12, we have the Aston Martin of Lance Stroll. Now, as we know, the Aston Martin did really well last year. They brought some upgrades, and then it kind of fell off. So I'm assuming they learned a lot from that, and they will be using the faster version of the car to make some better upgrades, bring it in, give some good speed. I just think, again, Lance is kind of inconsistent, and I think other teams will have bounced ahead of Aston Martin, so that kind of boost they had at the beginning of last season where they figured some things out right is not going to go as well for them this year. So that's why I put Lance at P12. P11, some of you all are really going to call me crazy for this, is Alex Albon. That man can just squeeze the last little bit of everything from that Williams. And if the Williams is a little bit faster, like people are predicting it to be, I could genuinely see Albon just putting in consistent results. Nothing incredible, no podiums, nothing crazy like that, but consistent enough that it puts him quite high in the driver's standings. Now, P10, we're into the top 10. Things are getting serious, and some of you are going to genuinely think I'm insane for this one, because I've put Daniel Ricciardo at P10. Now, this is why. Let me explain. Let me explain my reasoning here, because I think genuinely it makes sense. There's been rumor that if Sergio Perez does not perform well this year in the first half of the season, he will be replaced, and it does seem like the prime candidate at the moment to replace him is Daniel Ricciardo. This point is based on the fact that I genuinely think Daniel will be replacing Checo after the summer break or right before, because Checo will not have been performing. So Daniel will get some decent points in the V-Carb, and then he'll be in a Red Bull and get a lot more points. But at that point, half the season's gone. There's only so much you can do. But I genuinely think this could happen. Let me know in the comments your thoughts. Do you think Checo's going to get the boot partway through the season? Do you think he's going to perform well? Or do you think he's going to fall short of the mark and someone was going to replace him? All right, P9 is Fernando Alonso. As I said, I don't know if the Aston Martin is going to have quite the pace advantage that they did last year, especially at the beginning of the season. But if there's anything we know about Fernando, it's kind of like it's like Alex. You can really just extract the most out of that car, and I could see Fernando just putting that car in places where it shouldn't be at the end of the day and just making use of good potential points. Now, P8, and this one, I'm looking at it, and maybe I need to rework this slightly. P8 is going to be Checo. Again, this is based on him losing his seat at Red Bull. I just think that even with like relatively decent results, he can have a good standing. And then if the V-Carb is good or decent, you know, he can potentially get some points in there if it's a full swap, if that's what happens. Maybe he and Fernando should be switched. This is the part where, you know, I genuinely think P5 to P10, like, it's going to be close come the end of the season on points. All right, next up, P7. I have put George Russell at P7, which, here's the thing. I think based on the fact that Lewis is leaving Mercedes at the end of this coming season, I think that's concerning for what the potential pace of the Mercedes is this coming year. Obviously, they could shock us. They could put a car on the podium every single weekend. But based on how far behind they were and, you know, progress they've made, I just don't foresee that happening. And I think the Drivers' Championship and the Constructors is going to be a lot closer, except for the top spot, than it maybe has been in the last couple of years. And George does do relatively well under pressure, but like this, I don't know. I'm just feeling George Russell at P7, and that's just a gut instinct. All right, P6 is going to be Carlos Sainz. Now, I think the Ferrari is actually going to be a decent car this year. I really do. I think the problem is Carlos, to the best of our knowledge that we know, does not have a seat for 2025. Which means he's going to want to try to prove himself, which means he's going to be going a little harder, a little crazier, and I think because of that, he's going to put himself in some more precarious situations, crash out more, crash in qualifying, and cost himself some points. So this is not about the Ferrari as much as it is about the ability for Carlos to deal with this pressure of trying to find a new seat and perform for the other teams. All right, now we're getting into the bread and butter and things. The craziness begins because we're in the top 5, and at P5, I put my boy, the McLaren driver, Oscar Piastri. And I can hear your keyboards of the keyboard warriors typing already, be like, the McLaren and P5, that's crazy. Have you looked at the data? I don't care. I genuinely think the McLaren is going to be significantly better this year and is going to do well. And I think Oscar at P5 is not that crazy of a prediction, and that's just where I'm going to leave it. I'm not even going to explain more. P4, I've put Lewis Hamilton. Now, I think the battle between, you know, P4, 5, and 6 is probably going to be very, very close. So some of these could be interchangeable, honestly. Like I said, I don't think the Mercedes is going to be the best car, but I think Lewis is usually pretty good at driving a car in a way that maximizes what it is there to offer. Also, kind of the opposite of Carlos, he knows he's switching things up next year. He doesn't really know what that means, but like there's a lot of probably weight off of his shoulders, and I feel like he might be driving a little more relaxed and just be able to keep things interesting. All right, the top 3 of the driver's standings. This is where we're gonna start making some enemies, because in P3 I have put Charles Leclerc. Like I said, the Ferrari is gonna be fast. It's gonna be good. But I think in P2 will be Lando Norris. And I think that this is going to be such a tight battle all season. I don't know if Max, we know he's in P1. I don't know if he's going to run away with the season as much as he did last year. But I think P2 and P3 especially are going to be incredibly close. Unless Checo really turns up and starts putting that Red Bull consistently on a podium. But whatever is beneath those Red Bulls is going to be an extremely tight battle. And if there's anything we know about Ferrari, it's that they're really good at screwing up their strategy and screwing over Charles. So take that as you will. I would like the fact that he's P3, I think would be a great result for Charles, but I think Lando will be P2. And that is probably the craziest thing I've said in this video. I'm going to be honest. Lando P2 in the Drivers' Championship for 2024. I'll say it out loud. I manifest. We'll light some candles. Call it a day. Drink some wine. But I genuinely think Lando could be P2. Do I think he'll be close to Max? No, probably not. I would love for there to be a good battle. I don't think anyone's going to be that close to Max, especially at the beginning of the season. But we'll see. We'll see what happens. We'll find out in Bahrain. We'll see in practice. Maybe we'll get some ideas, but we'll for sure find out in qualifying on Friday. But yeah, that is my drivers' predictions for the 2024 F1 standings. And they're saucy. I'm gonna be honest. They're not just a little saucy. These predictions are covered in sauce. So let's just move on. Let's move on to the Constructors' Championship. All right, for the Constructors' Championship, I'm going to speed through this one a little bit quicker because I kind of feel like I've explained why I think the drivers will be where they are, and I feel like that kind of represents the Constructors pretty well and why they are going to be where they're going to finish. So I'm actually going to start in P1 this time. It's going to be Red Bull. At the end of the day, Red Bull's going to be P1 in the Constructors' Championship. I just don't think there's anyone that can challenge them in the Constructors. If weird thing happens, maybe someone challenges Max in the driver's standings, but again, probably not. So Red Bull P1. P2, McLaren. Like I said, I think they're going to have a good car. I think it's going to be a very close fight between them and P3, which is Ferrari in my opinion. It'll be a very close fight, but I think the drive that McLaren has as a team and Lando and Oscar is going to win it for them at the end of the day. P4 is going to be, P3 is the Ferrari, as I just said. P4 is going to be the Mercedes. Again, not going to be the best car, but George and Lewis will be able to extract what they can out of it, put it in some good positions to end the season. P4. P5, the Aston Martin. Again, I think a lot of this is going to fall on Fernando Alonso's shoulders. Maybe Lance will show up a little bit more, especially depending on how good or bad that car is this year and what kind of speed they're bringing into Bahrain compared to last year. But yeah, the Aston Martin in P5. P6, the V-Carb. I think they're, with the new branding, with the drivers they currently have, with the car as we saw it on track, it's got some good potential, and especially if it's consistent, I think it could do some pretty crazy things, honestly. Some pretty crazy things. So P7 and P8 are interesting because I think, again, this is going to be one that's going to be close. P7, I've put Alpine, and P8, I have put the Williams. And I think these are going to be so incredibly close. I was making this the other day, and I was just flip-flopping both these names. Williams P7, Alpine P7. Williams P7. It's going to be close, I think, in my opinion. Honestly, I think a lot of it's going to come down to how Logan performs. If Logan can perform consistently well, Williams for sure will move up a spot and be higher up in the standings. If he doesn't show up, well, he's not going to have a seat, first of all, but the Williams will not be as high. P9 is the Alfa Romeo, and P10 is the Haas. And I think those are pretty self-explanatory, and I don't really feel like I need to explain that more. But I would love to hear your top 3 drivers and your top 3 constructors champions below in the comments. Do you agree with these standings? Do you think I'm crazy? Let me know. They're a little wild, they're a little out there, and I know that people are going to be like, oh, he's memeing for the views, he's memeing for the content. Genuinely, this is like a solid prediction in my mind. I think This is not that crazy of a prediction. There's some bold predictions in there for sure. But it's not the most, it's not unlikely. This is a very likely scenario for these predictions. And I guess we'll just have to wait until tomorrow, Friday, and Saturday to see who shows up, how goes qualifying, and how that first race goes. And we'll probably start to get a good feel for how this season's going to go. But as always, thank you all for watching. Enjoy the first race of Bahrain this season. It's going to be a good one. I'm so excited to have cars back on track, qualifying in the race. Freaking yes. Let's go. Until next time, enjoy F1, go have fun, and I will see you all in the next video. Bye.